If you've just joined us, good afternoon and welcome to today's Deakin University Alumni webinar. From month to month, we'll be conducting webinars around a prescribed theme. This month, our theme focuses on health and well-being. Our next webinar will be in May and will focus around finance and superannuation. Hopefully, many who are here today will be back again to join us. Today, however, I'm pleased to introduce to you Associate Professor Tim Crowe, who works in nutrition in the School of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences here at Deakin University. Just a short bit about Tim. Tim is an Associate Professor in Nutrition in the School of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences here at Deakin University. He marries a medical research background in clinical nutrition together with teaching roles in the areas of nutritional biochemistry and physiology, as well as the applied role of nutrition in disease prevention and management. Tim is actively involved in several areas of nutrition research, including specialised nutrition in the prevention of surgical complications, malnutrition identification, and nutrition support in wound healing. Tim has an active media profile, together with a growing social media following, from his Thinking Nutrition blog and Facebook page, which he uses to communicate important nutrition messages to the public in plain and simple language. A short blurb on today's webinar. Superfood is a widely used catch-all phrase, common on the internet and in the marketing of exotic and normally expensive fruits and vegetables. But just what exactly makes a food super? In today's webinar, Tim will reveal the truth behind some of the so-called popular superfoods and sort out the marketing hype from the reality. Tim will emphasise the importance of food variety and present his own list of top 10 foods to consume that he recommends to eat, and will explain why they are so good for you. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you all today Associate Professor Tim Crowe.
Is my screen showing? Okay. Hello everybody, and welcome to the webinar for Deakin Alumni, and also welcome to perhaps some past students that I've been involved with teaching nutrition at Deakin. Hopefully some flashbacks today of me as your lecturer, but it's a much easier topic with no exam afterwards. Also welcome to current Deakin students who are either studying nutrition or have an interest in nutrition, and also members from the general public who have an interest in this topic. I know there was a lot of interest in this webinar when I promoted it on my social media channels. So superfoods, it's really a term I deal with every year. At the beginning of the year, where the media have a new list of superfoods we all should be eating to get our super health. And the list changes from year to year. I could probably spend a full-time job just keeping up to date with whatever today's popular superfoods are, and which, in fact, I'll talk about a couple of those today. The topic for today is about superfoods. I'll talk a bit about the branding and the marketing behind what makes a food super, some true superfood wins and fails, and believe me, there's a lot of fails out there in the marketing of superfoods. I'll give you my own list of top 10 foods to consume based upon several decades of very, very nerdy nutrition research, where I look across all of the evidence, looking at all different types of diets and foods for health, to come out with what I consider the best sorts of foods to be eating more of in your diet, and a few tips on how to actually get some more dietary variety, because we have recommendations to eat a wide variety of foods, but actually what does a diet that has a wide variety of foods in it look like, and how can you actually increase dietary variety? So let's start with superfoods. What is a superfood? Well, a superfood can be whatever you want to call it, because there is no legal definition of the word superfood in Australia, and it has no meaning among geeks like me, nutrition scientists. It's more of a overused marketing tool. But if you look at some of the commonalities of what typically constitutes a food as being super, it will be a food with a high phytonutrient content. And phytonutrient means it comes from a plant. So typically you'll be high in antioxidants or fiber or minerals such as selenium or omega-3s and so on. So the likely benefit gained from any particular superfood will be from a combination of some of the nutrients that it contains. Now, with superfoods, it's not just about marketing. There's a heavy dose of health claims made about them. And some of those are based upon some good science and research, and some of those are just based upon fill pins and anecdotes. And here is a nice little YouTube clip just to get things started. It's about the miracle elixir of coconut oil, which certainly merits the term superfood as far as the public goes. So I'll just switch my audio input. Hit play.
You know what? Your skin is looking great. Oh my God, thank you. I'm using coconut oil. That stuff is amazing. Oh, I know. I love it. I take my makeup off with it. I wash my face with it. I moisturize with it. I cook with it all the time. Did you know you can brush your teeth with that? Yeah. No, I knew that. You can also use it on your hair. And did you know that it's a natural deodorant? Yeah, it's great for your metabolism. It's great for your circulation. So. Also, really good for wounds. Any kind of wound. You know, you can run your car on it. I mean, the government doesn't want you to know that, but you can run your car on it. Did you know that one time I found a dead bird in my garden, and I brought it inside, and I dipped it in coconut oil, and then it came back to life? For real. Yeah, I mean, it is amazing stuff. Hey, you know that deep pit of anxiety that you carry with you every day, but you don't really notice it until it's all-consuming and completely ruining your life? Totally. Wouldn't it be great if you could put coconut oil on that? Totally, yes, totally, yes. God, fix me already.
It's a pity that there's no interactivity today, because I could ask for a show of hands of actually who has heard these sort of claims made about it, all the popular superfoods, and certainly coconut oil is one of them. It's interesting, so coconut oil does have a bit of evidence for some of the health claims made about it, but if you believe the hype, and that YouTube clip probably isn't too far from the truth from some of the things I've read, it will do everything, and it's an absolute miracle of food. If you like coconut oil in your cooking, by all means go ahead and use it, but it is not going to cure every disease known to mankind, unfortunately. And if it did, and if there's evidence for it, hey, I'd be sprinkling it myself and be part of the nutrition course at Deakin, but it's not at this stage. So common superfoods, this list is by no means exhaustive. In fact, I would need to update it every year for what the popular superfoods are as far as the marketing goes. But this is a brief list of some of the common foods promoted as being superfoods. In fact, some of these are pretty good healthy foods you're probably eating right now. Some of them are ones you may have heard of, or people told you that you should eat more of them. I purposely leave this sort of slide about a year out of date, because if I included today's popular superfoods, I should add bone broth and probably birch water in there. They're today's, and probably tomorrow I'd need to update it with some new superfoods. It's a very difficult task keeping up with the marketing of superfoods. So let's go back right to the beginning of probably one of the most popular superfoods, first promoted when we had the avenue of the internet to really get some marketing reach for superfoods. And goji berries was probably the first pin-up superfood going around. Very popular about 10 or 15 years ago. And I know how popular something is if I'm getting asked questions about it, or if the media are ringing me up asking me for my view on gojis. So goji's one of the first one. Goji's is a fruit, has lots of health claims made about it. Some really great ones, such as it has the equivalent of vitamin C in it, equal to 500 times an orange. Now, if you just read that on the website, you go, gee, that sounds pretty good indeed, until you do some basic maths. An orange has about 50 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams, times it by 500, and you get gojis having 25 grams of vitamin C, which is complete and utter rubbish. They contain the same amount of vitamin C as any other citrus fruits. Also, they contain 18 amino acids. That sounds pretty damn good indeed. Of course, anybody that studied nutrition would know that we actually need 20 amino acids. So because they are a fruit, they contain very little protein, and the protein that's in them would lack some of the essential amino acids. So for the untrained mind, it looks pretty impressive that there's 18 amino acids in there. But for the rest of us, we look at it and go, big deal. Lots of life extension claims, using some anecdotes of some guy in China that lived for 320 years, completely unverifiable of course, but this sort of claim keeps getting repeated through the internet. So the marketing of these sorts of foods is very much driven by hype and things that are just completely and utterly wrong, and almost laughably wrong in some cases. There's been a small amount of research done on goji berries in humans to show that if you eat goji berries, you absorb more antioxidants. Who would have thought? You eat fruit, you absorb antioxidants. There's only been one study done looking at the effect of goji berry juice in people who have been treated for cancer, which showed some small benefit in tolerating chemotherapy, but that was done in China and only the English abstract of the research is available. The rest of the research based on goji is pretty much based upon what you read on the internet. Wheatgrass is certainly a popular superfood. It's been around for probably a good decade or so, very popular in juice bars. The idea that you drink a shot of wheatgrass to get all of these wonderful vitamins and minerals is very, very appealing. Not only that, it is a detoxifier. It cleanses your body of all sorts of nasty toxins thanks to the chlorophyll content in it. One single shot of wheatgrass contains the equivalent of 1 kilogram of vegetables. Why on earth would you bother eating again? Just drink wheatgrass, except it's a complete myth. The amount of vitamins and minerals you find in a shot of wheatgrass is exactly equal to the same quantity of spinach or broccoli, and in fact some of those contains more vitamins than wheatgrass. The chlorophyll in wheatgrass you don't absorb, or you only absorb a very small amount. And thinking back to your year 10 biology, you would know for chlorophyll to actually work, you need sunlight to engage in photosynthesis. We are humans, we don't undertake photosynthesis, and chlorophyll is not going to cleanse your blood of any sort of toxins. By all means, if you like the taste of lawn clippings, wheatgrass is certainly the beverage for you. Otherwise, it's just a form of vegetables you can get much cheaper and much tastier. Acai is a popular superfood that's resurged into interest of recent times. It's a very popular berry to have with breakfast foods and in juice bars. Acai is a tropical fruit. It contains lots of antioxidants, as you would find in many of these sorts of foods. There's only been a couple of studies done in labs and in humans to show that it may have some small benefit in health. But when you step back from it, you could say the same thing about most fruit and vegetables. If you eat more fruit and vegetables, you'll have more antioxidants in your blood, you'll get more fiber in your diet, which will be good for you, and you'll get a whole range of other nutrients. So acai berries has been quoted as being the poster child of the power of the internet to promote products for which only limited phytochemical and pharmacological information is available. And that is very true. That goes for the couple of superfoods I've already presented. Compare that to some very humble fruits and vegetables which we do know a lot about, where there is very good evidence for a health benefit. And I'll talk about those guys fairly shortly. Quinoa is a popular superfood that's emerged into promotion over the last couple of years. I admit it took me about a year to actually work out how to pronounce quinoa, but now I've got it down pat. Quinoa is promoted as a popular superfood because it's an alternative to grain foods. Technically, quinoa is a seed, but it's fairly similar to the grain family. Now, if you look at some of the claims made about quinoa, they're actually true, but here on this slide I've actually done a bit of a head-to-head comparison of good old trusty oats versus quinoa. And if you look at the energy content, they're pretty much identical. Protein content, slightly a little bit more in oats, but not much. The fat content's the same, carbohydrates the same. Oats do contain a lot more fiber, and that's a big difference in fiber there I'm showing. And a lot of that fiber is soluble fiber, and there's excellent research showing the health benefits from oats of reducing cholesterol levels from the beta-glucan present in it. They contain similar amount of minerals. Quinoa is a gluten-free a cereal/seed, that's absolutely true. Oats may be considered gluten-free, but some people with celiac disease do respond to them, so there's a bit of a query on that. So if you were following a very strict gluten-free diet, you probably wouldn't have oats, so quinoa would be a popular alternative. If you were jumping on the popular gluten-free bandwagon fad and you like to eat gluten-free when you go out, perhaps quinoa might be a better choice than oats, but overall the gluten content is very small. Quinoa contains nutritionally complete protein. It's one of the few plant-based sources of protein that contain all 20, not 18, but all 20 amino acids. Soy is one of the other few plant protein sources that meets that criteria, which is excellent if the only source of protein in your diet was coming from quinoa. So if you had a very subsistence type diet and quinoa was meeting most of your protein needs, that would be the choice for you, because if you were just eating oats and no other protein source, you become protein deficient. Yet in a country like Australia, we don't need to worry about that at all, because we eat a wide variety of foods and a wide variety of protein foods. So the fact that it's nutritionally complete is probably more of an interesting fact, not really of much relevance to the rest of us. And the final line, the costs. The cost of oats versus quinoa, for anybody that's looked at the price of quinoa in a supermarket would see that it's multiple times higher than oats. So if you believe the benefits of quinoa are much more in your favour, the price is certainly worth it. When I look at this, I just cannot see a big justification for price. Unless you enjoy the taste of quinoa as well, go for it. But it is certainly not a magical superfood. Oats does a pretty good job in holding its own end, and it's a pretty cheap price as well. Now, one of the consistent claims that comes up when you delve into the world of superfoods is antioxidants. Now, antioxidants were big news about 15 or 20 years ago. Antioxidants had the promise of the new fountain of youth. If we took lots of antioxidant supplements, we'd develop less rates of cancer and heart disease and so on. Unfortunately, the scientific jury is in. When you take high-dose antioxidants in a supplement, you don't get a lot of the benefits. If you eat a diet that is high in antioxidants, it is certainly linked to favourable benefits in terms of reduction of the risk of many forms of cancer, of heart disease, of diabetes, and so on. So eating foods high in antioxidants is a good thing to do. Now, you can actually measure the antioxidants of fruit and vegetables quite easily in a lab test, and shown on this slide is just the total antioxidant capacity of just a range of foods. For anybody that wants to delve into this area in a lot more detail, there's a reference there from where these basic foods come from. Now, of course, you've probably all heard that blueberries are wonderful foods high in antioxidants, and they absolutely are. But who has heard that good old reliable red kidney beans contain loads more antioxidants than blueberries? So does this mean that kidney beans are better than blueberries and blueberries are better than sweet potatoes? No, all this means is that if you look at one particular measure of nutritional merit of a food, there are some foods that rank higher. You could equally draw a similar graph for the fibre content or the content of a whole range of other nutrients, and the order of the foods would change. So antioxidants is a useful measure to look at the nutritional merit of a food, but is by no means should be the only merit. And we know that antioxidants alone, unfortunately, are not our magical saviour for long-term health. Eating the food rather than taking the pill is the best way to go, and just eating a wide variety of fruit and vegetables will give a bit of all of these other nutrients outside of antioxidants. So if we take it as read that antioxidants certainly are a big promotional factor in superfoods, how do some of the popular superfoods stack up when you actually measure their antioxidant content? Well, Choice did a survey in 2007 addressing exactly that question. They measured the antioxidant content of some very popular juices on the market at the time. So we had your goji juice, some acai juice, some noni juice, and a bunch of others. And they compared the antioxidant content of these popular juices against the good old, boring, plain old red, delicious apple, which is the big red bar shown on the left on each of these graphs. And you don't need much scientific research training to see that the antioxidant content of these very expensive juices absolutely paled into insignificance compared to just an apple. When you factor in the cost of these juices, the apple just wins hands down. So the antioxidant story isn't as clear-cut as what it seems, and the claims made about them, particularly for the expensive juices, just do not stack up to scrutiny. So the superfruit juices do contain a range of nutrients, there's no question. If you want to drink goji juice and all those sorts of popular juices, by all means drink them. They're quite expensive, but the health claims are over-exaggerated. And what is a big warning sign to me in the area of overblown health claims is any of these products that are sold through multi-level marketing. Now, Amway is probably the very first and most well-known multi-level marketing company, but there are a range of companies that specialise in the nutrition area that promote their products through multi-level marketing. So when goji berry juice first came on the market, it was sold through multi-level marketing, and it's always a big flag for nutrition quackery is anything sold through multi-level marketing. So having a friend of a friend introduce you to the product where you buy directly from them, and more importantly, that friend will actually try and recruit you as a salesperson as well to keep the cycle of the pyramid or the trapezoid or whatever model the MLM is working under going. So MLM by itself is nothing wrong if that's how products want to be sold, but it's a major flag for fairly dodgy health claims about superfoods if it's being sold through that avenue. So until we have better scientific evidence, it's much cheaper and much wiser just to get your antioxidants and nutrients from good old traditional boring fruit and veggies. And interestingly, in 2007 in the EU, they actually prohibited the use of the term superfood in the marketing unless it was accompanied by specific medical claims supported by credible scientific research. which would probably put the kibosh on quite a few superfoods we see promoted in Australia. So that's the current state of superfoods at the moment. I mean, because the field changes every year there's new products that come onto the market that are promoted as superfoods. Just look through the prism of what I presented earlier as any potential flags for quackery or overblown health claims. And generally price will be your guide. So if something is very expensive and it promises the best of possible health and all sorts of disease-curing claims with really no credible scientific evidence, just run a mile from it. You don't need to run too far because in about a year's time everybody will have forgotten about it and we'll move on to the next superfood. So it's not a term I like using very much, superfood. By far the most useful term to think about is really super diets. If you are eating a wide variety of very healthy, nutritious foods, you'll be streets ahead of anyone who's just glugging down their wheatgrass shots from their juice bars. So a super diet is a much, much better way to think, rather than one particular food is going to do everything for you. And following that, I'm going to give my top 10 list in what I consider probably my true top 10 order. I mean, if you ask 10 different nutritionists, they'd probably give you slightly different ordering of this list, but there'd be a lot of foods here on my list that I know would appear on other nutritionist lists. So you may have some foods you are disappointed in seeing that aren't appearing. Well, that's all well and good. You can actually make your own list up as well. But if the basis of what you're eating includes some of these foods, you're probably doing pretty well. So number 10 is yogurt. Yogurt's an excellent source of calcium. It's low in fat and high quality protein. And of course yogurt is a source of lots of the good bacteria, the probiotics. So it's a good food to be eating more of if you choose to eat dairy foods. The only disclaimer with yogurt is really stay away from the really reduced fat yogurts because they can have more calories than the regular variety, because if you take away the fat from yogurt, which is already a fairly low fat product, you are left with a very watery substance. You actually need to increase the viscosity of the yogurt by adding some thickener to it, and some of that thickener will give the additional calories. So if you want fruit in your yogurt, make sure it's coming from fairly healthy berries and fruits to start with, rather than added sugar. Number 9 is tomatoes. It certainly contains a very powerful antioxidant called lycopene. Lycopene belongs to the vitamin A family, and lycopene is what gives fruit and vegetables their red color. So red capsicum and watermelon also contain lots of lycopene. There is certainly some interesting research to show that lycopene may protect men against prostate cancer. And this is one food where if you cook tomatoes, you actually increase the bioavailability of food. So while you may enjoy eating a lot of your food raw, in some cases cooking food does increase the availability of particular phytonutrients, and lycopene is one of them. If you add a little bit of olive oil, you increase the absorption even more. So sun-dried tomatoes is a bit of a winner for me. Soy is also on my list. If I look at lycopene and tomatoes being promoted more towards men, soy would be one I'd be tailing more towards women. It contains a high quality protein, also contains lots of isoflavones, and isoflavones have weak estrogen-like activity in the body. Now, there's a bit of research to show that perhaps these isoflavones may be of some small benefit in reducing the risk of breast cancer. We know that the Japanese women have lower rates of breast cancer, and they consume lots of soy foods. But that's an observational research. Unfortunately, our diet in a country like Australia contains a lot of different types of soy foods compared to the variety of soy products in a country like Japan. So it's not as simple as soy means less breast cancer. Certainly though, if you look at the protein that's found in soy, there is a very clear link between eating lots of soy protein and lowering the levels of your LDL cholesterol, which is the so-called bad cholesterol levels. And it's at the level of evidence that the FDA in America allow health claims to be made that consuming 25 grams of soy protein per day can be of benefit in lowering LDL cholesterol and thus reducing the risk of heart disease. So soy food is a good food to be including, to eat more of. And there's a whole variety of different soy foods that you can eat. Things like tofu is probably a good one to start with, but some of the fermented products such as miso and tempeh as well are good soy foods. And of course everybody likes to see this on any list, chocolate, but please take note of the word before chocolate. It says dark chocolate. So dark chocolate is one form of chocolate where there is some pretty good research that it can be of benefit, particularly in reducing the risk of heart disease. So dark chocolate contains lots and lots of these phytochemicals called flavonols, which are very potent antioxidants. These flavonols can also increase the sensitivity of insulin in the body and also increase the vasodilation, or really the width of blood vessels. So clinical trials with dark chocolate, and these are the sorts of clinical trials where the researchers have no issue at all in recruiting people to consume dark chocolate versus placebo, which is either white chocolate or milk chocolate. Taking additional dark chocolate can lower blood pressure, can decrease the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, and improve blood flow and improve the action of insulin. So it all sounds pretty good. But a major disclaimer, a lot of the research in this area was funded by the chocolate industry. Now, there is nothing wrong with industry-funded research, but industry will typically fund research that was more geared towards giving them a favourable benefit. That's well and good. It may be that good old Brussels sprouts can do just the same, if not even better, but the pockets of the Brussels sprouts growers is nowhere deep as the pockets of the chocolate industry, so they've got more money to do this sort of research. But if you like eating chocolate, particularly dark chocolate, a couple of squares per day is enough to give these heart health benefits. Moving on to fish, which is number 6. Interestingly, a couple of years ago when I put this sort of list together, because I present this in different formats, fish was my number 1, and over the years it's actually been decreasing a little bit. And only in the media a couple of days ago was some new research to really reinforce that the initial benefit seen from fish oil capsules in reducing the risk of heart disease wasn't really stacking up with later research. Yet when you look at the clinical trials, for people that ate fish, a benefit was still being seen. So this may be a good example that even though fish contain lots of these really healthy omega-3 fatty acids, taking it purely from a capsule may not give the potential heart benefits that eating the whole fish may give, because there may be other beneficial nutrients from eating fish. So if you have no aversion to eating seafood, it's probably better to be getting your omega-3s, your long-chain omega-3s from fish rather than purely from fish oil capsules. If you're a vegetarian, have no fear, you can actually buy supplements of long-chain polyunsaturated fatty acids which are derived from algae, because algae, or plankton, are what gives fish their long-chain omega-3s, and that then moves up the fish food chain, and that's eventually what we eat. So there's some reasonable evidence that fish, particularly the omega-3s in fish, may have a benefit in heart disease, a small benefit in reducing inflammatory disease conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis, and a bit of interesting research in mental health, depression, ADHD, and even dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Getting into the top 5, and berries is certainly on my list. And berries is not just goji berries, it's blueberries, it's blackberries, cranberries, raspberries, strawberries, and even the pure goji and acai berries as whole fruit, not the expensive juice supplement. So all of these are very good berries, very good berries to be eating lots of. And there's no particular one that you should eat just exclusively. They're all good to eat, and some of them are cheaper than others. They're an excellent source of fiber, high in antioxidants and polyphenols. And some recent research, and this was actually done with blueberries, showed that having 3 servings per week is linked with a lower risk of heart attacks. So, you know, berries are wonderful foods to be eating, an excellent source of natural sugar rather than added sugar, and eat more of them if you can have them in your diet. Number 4 is tea. I'm sorry, coffee drinkers. One day coffee is good for you, the next day it's bad for you, but I don't see any convincing research to show that it should be probably a superfood apart from 7 a.m. in the morning ahead of a big day. Tea is one beverage where there's better research to show that there may be some additional health benefits from regularly drinking tea. So tea is rich in flavonoids. So these are, again, these plant chemicals you find across a whole range of fruit and vegetables. These particular flavonoids found in tea, at least in lab studies, have been linked with slowing the growth of cancer, and some observational studies in humans show lower rates of many forms of cancer and lower rates of heart disease. Both black and green tea are good for you, and if you'd like adding milk to your tea, go ahead and do it. It doesn't inhibit the absorption too much of these polyphenols. And of course, tea is a good source of water. Tea does contain some caffeine, but you drink far, far more water from the tea than from the small amount of water you will lose from any diuretic effect of caffeine. Into the top 3, nuts and seeds, high in healthy mono and polyunsaturated fatty acids, excellent source of vitamin E, great source of fiber and protein. Loads and loads of research showing that people that are regular consumers of nuts have a better ability to control their body weight and have lower rates of heart disease and lower rates of diabetes. I'm commonly asked what are the best sorts of nuts to consume, and I say all of them, whatever ones you like having. Just eat a variety of them, because the different variety of nuts contain slightly different levels of the healthy polyunsaturated fats and different levels of other nutrients. So just go for a range of different types of nuts, and a handful a day is probably all that you need. Number 2 is oats. So I've already covered oats when I compared oats to quinoa, but quinoa is an excellent food to be eating, and so are oats. Why oats appear on my superfood list, or my top 10 list of foods to consume, is that it's an excellent source of protein and B group vitamins. It's low in fat, and the fibre in oats, particularly the beta-glucan soluble fibre, is really good in keeping blood sugar levels in check and lowering cholesterol levels, and also helping with feelings of fullness after a meal. So it's one of the far, far better breakfast cereals to be considering having than some of the very, very average ones that are out there. And finally, my top food to consume, and this one has been my top one for many, many years, and this is the one food or food group where the evidence is really, really strong for having a huge range of health benefits, and that's these guys, cruciferous vegetables. This is broccoli, cauliflower, turnips, Brussels sprouts, and kale, which is today's superfood, but really kale is just the same as any of these other cruciferous vegetables. Bok choy, cabbage, and radishes, all of these together are cruciferous vegetables, and they just come out as number 1 on my top foods to be consuming. Excellent source of a whole range of nutrients, low in fibre, loads and loads of potent cancer-protecting agents. At least in vitro studies, they have very potent activity in reducing cancer growth. There's almost nothing really negative to find about eating too many of these particular foods. So if you like eating these, or if you're not eating much already, eat more of them. And it just doesn't have to be kale smoothies. It can be a whole range of different cruciferous vegetables. They are all good to be eating, and just try a variety of them. So if they're my top 10 list of top foods to consume, there's other things I could have included in there, without doubt, but they're the ones I consider the most strongest for having evidence being linked with health benefits. But at any one particular time of the year, we can walk into a local supermarket and have about 50 different types of fruit and vegetables available to us at any time in the year. We have the most nutritious, abundant food supply in the history of humankind available to us right now. We have never, ever had it so good. Contrasting that, we have one of the most unhealthiest food supplies available to us in the history of humankind right now. Just drive down any of the major roads and look at all of the fast food outlets that you can go drive through and get your burgers and fries and chocolate bars and so on at any time of the day and night. So our problem is not so much our whole entire food supply. We can actually get lots of healthy foods. It's just the choices we make. So because we've got so many different fruit and vegetables we can choose, just don't stick with the same ones all the time. You've got a huge variety that you can take your pick from. Just try some different ones every time you go to the supermarket. Go nuts for nuts. Just eat different types. If you like one particular type, eat those. If you like a variety, go for those as well. Part of me wants to say that yes, go for unsalted nuts, but I'm only human. I like my nuts salted as well. So, eat unsalted. That's probably what I should be telling you. But, a bit of salt, if that's what makes them a bit more tastier, then do that as well. Choose recipes that use lots of different ingredients. So the more ingredients that are in your recipe that you add yourself, not that has been added by the manufacturer, that will increase the food variety that you are consuming each day. And, break it up a bit, go a bit crazy. Try and alternate your breakfast. Don't stick with the same type of breakfast cereal every morning or the same menu of eggs and toast. Just try different breakfasts every now and then just to increase food variety rather than stick in the same routine every day. And your challenge, your food variety of challenge, if you can meet this challenge, you probably meet all the boxes for having a healthy and varied diet. How many different foods do you eat each day? If you can get to 30 different foods per day, you've pretty much got a healthy diet. That would be taken as read. The average Australian eats between 15 and 18 different foods per day. So your target is 30 different types of foods per day. Now, 5 different colours of M&Ms doesn't count as 5 different foods, and 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and sesame seed bun, which is about 8, I probably wouldn't count as 8. different types of food. So this is 30 discrete foods that you would normally consider fairly healthy to start with, and I don't think there's too many people that would not know that eating lots of fruit and vegetables is good for you. Throw in some whole grain foods, throw in some good sources of dairy if you choose to eat them, throw in some good sources of animal protein if you choose to eat them as well. You've got a whole variety of foods that you can choose from. So try and get the 30. If you can do it, excellent. You're probably doing better than most Australians, and keep doing it on and on. So that's my brief little overview of top foods to be eating. I am a nutrition geek. I keep active on social media day and night, keeping up to date with the latest research and putting all of this into context for you, the public. So if you want to engage with me on social media, I have a very active Facebook site on Thinking Nutrition, very active on Twitter, and a blog as well. So I'd love to chat and engage with you more if you want to connect through those channels. So thank you very much for your attention. We're now at 223, and it's been increasing rather than decreasing throughout the webinar, which is a good sign. I haven't bored you too much. So I think we're taking a few questions at the moment. Oh, and they're on screen. Okay, just bear with me for one moment while I have a quick look through. Okay. So a question from Laura about the kale craze. How does kale stand when compared to other leafy green veggies? And I reckon I've answered that question. Kale is an excellent cruciferous vegetable, and it's pretty much on a par with most other forms of cruciferous vegetables. A question about, are raw nuts considerably more healthier than roasted? There's not a big difference in the nutritional content between raw and roasted, so it comes down to just really taste preferences, but there can be, really just, if you like eating roasted nuts, eat those because there's not a lot of additional things added to them. So really just go with whatever you choose. I generally mix between the two. I'd rather go from roasted or raw, and I find the taste is fairly similar. There's a lot of questions appearing on my screen, and they're sort of going off a little bit at the moment. There's a question asked about, will the slides be available after the seminar for Marina, and the answer is yes, they'll be available in about a week's time. A question about what is the serving size when talking about berries. The serving size for berries is just going to be a small handful, so a serving of berries would be about 30 grams thereabouts, and that would be equivalent to a small serving of fruit. But if you like having more of them, then eat more of them. Sometimes your budget may preclude that, but if you look at how some of these berries normally come from the supermarket, they'll be in containers about 150 to 250 grams. So eating one of those will certainly be a very good, healthy serve. Thank you for that questions. An excellent question from Kelly about one of the reasons people push coconut oil is the belief that cooking with olive oil or any other vegetable oil makes it toxic. Is there any evidence for this? That's an excellent question. Surprisingly, coconut oil that you would buy from a health food shop actually has a very similar smoke point to olive oil. So the smoke point is the temperature where an oil undergoes chemical changes and starts to give off a bluish smoke. So in fact, coconut oil, or at least the organic unrefined coconut oil, is actually not a good choice for deep frying or high temperature cooking. It behaves very similar to olive oil. So there's actually much better oils to be using. So with oils, the advice is that they should be used for the purpose they're designed. For high temperature cooking, there are things like safflower and canola, which are very popular oils to be using. They are more designed for high temperature cooking. For lower temperature cooking, coconut oil and olive oil can be used, and certainly for dressings, olive oil is where you want to be going. So yes, if you are doing cooking with oil and you are seeing smoke coming off your food, that is an indication you have got the temperature too high, and that's where the chemical changes can introduce some very nasty substances into the cooking oil. But it is a myth that cooking oil is going to be better for you for cooking with than olive oil, because the smoke point is very similar. A question from Jessica. I thought soy milk was bad for you and can cause infertility in women. If you read the internet, that is what you will get about soy food. However, the evidence really doesn't link any of these detrimental effects for consuming soy food with fertility problems. Most of the evidence is positive for the consumption of soy foods in maybe reducing the risk of some forms of cancer and also reducing the risk of heart disease. But it's a very common when I see permeated through the internet on blogs and Facebook sites that soy is really bad for us because of these phytoestrogens in us and it can make us all infertile. The evidence to support those claims is minimal to none. If you like having soy foods, by all means continue eating them. A question from Claire. What about frozen fruit and veg versus fresh in terms of nutritional content? Great. Now, to start with, nothing can beat fruit and vegetables that you grow in your garden. That will be the most nutritionally superior fruit and vegetables that you can consume. However, frozen fruit and vegetables are actually just as good, if not better, compared to the ones you will buy in a store. And the reason why is that when the fruit and vegetables are frozen, they are done within about 48 hours of picking. They are blanched and they are packaged very close to the farm. And then once they're in deep storage, once they're frozen, the nutrient losses are quite small indeed. So in some cases, frozen fruit and vegetables can be a slightly better product than what you buy in the supermarket on a Sunday night, getting the leftover sad-looking fruit and vegetables. So fresh will always be best, but what we consider fresh nowadays in supermarkets at least may not be as fresh as what you would want it to be fresh. So frozen is a good option to be considering using. Okay, I've got time for 2 more questions, and thank you. There's like about 50 or 60 here, which is just fantastic. Thank you very much for all of your questions. So I'll just try and pick one more randomly. What about coconut water, coconut oil, coconut milk? I could partly refer you to the YouTube clip outlining all of the health claims made about it. But as far as coconut water goes and coconut milk, it is sometimes promoted as a very good beneficial sports drink. However, there's nothing that wonderful about coconut water that sports drinks as well wouldn't have the same sorts of benefits. So it can be a fairly expensive source of water pretty much. There's nothing magical about it that I would recommend to anybody for any general health benefits at all. And I'm going to take one final question. And there's actually 2 or 3 questions coming up about activated nuts, and that's always a popular topic, nut activation. If you look at when you activate nuts, it's really just starting some form of the germination process, and there is a small change in the levels of some nutrients in nut activation. And just to go one step back, the idea of actually soaking and treating particular foods isn't unknown. If you look at some legumes, to actually consume them and get the most benefit from them without any too many side effects from any high fiber content or high levels of particular fiber that's present in legumes, it is recommended to soak them, and that's a very common thing. So soaking particular foods is not unknown, but in nuts itself, there's really no evidence to show that activating them is going to give you any additional health benefits. So if you've got the time to activate your nuts, by all means go ahead and do them. If you can afford the extra price premium of paying for pre-activated nuts, do that as well. But if you look at all of the research that's been done in nuts, it's all just been done in regular nuts that people eat day in, day out without activating them. So overall, I would say that it's probably more of a popular health trend that we won't be hearing a lot more of in some years to come. And I think that's pretty much got a life of its own thanks to a certain celebrity chef on TV about 2 years ago. So thank you very much for your attention today. Over 200 of you listening into the webinar. It's been great to speak to you all. Thank you all for your very insightful questions. I wish I had a bit more time to address more of them. It's such a fascinating area, the area of nutrition and health. It's something I talk about for days on end. And as some of my past students would know, it's something I normally do. So I'll hand over to Brad now just to finish off the webinar.
Yes, thanks, Tim. Thank you all for joining in with us here today. Thanks, Tim, for your insightful webinar on superfoods versus supermyths. I hope many of you have taken a lot away from today's webinar, and I hope to see many of you at our next webinar in May. A recording of today's webinar will be available within the next few weeks via our website. And if you do have any unanswered questions, please feel free to contact Tim via the channels provided here. Or alternatively, you can reach our alumni office at deakinalumni@deakin.edu.au. Thanks again, and have a great afternoon.